This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is Ashley Eckstein, Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z.
Hello and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. We are your spoiler-free place for Star Wars discussion, analysis, and rhetoric. I'm your host, Dan Z, with a blockbuster show. We are, of course, going to talk about the last episode of not only the Siege of Mandalore, but the Clone Wars altogether, Victory and Death. Again, I'm your host, Dan Z, joined by an incredible cast of characters, smugglers, rogues, charming scoundrels, all of the above. We're just going to bring them in as I'm looking on my screen here. First, we're going to bring in Ross Hollebon.
Dan, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Of course. Ross, of course, he was on for our STEM on the Star Wars Day that Tom was the mastermind behind. But this is your first time on the podcast proper, so happy to have you.
Yeah, super fun and obviously some great folks here.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well, speaking of great folks, we're going to bring in our next awesome fellow. This is Mr. Colby Mead.
Hi, Dan. Hi, Ross.
Howdy.
Good to have you on the show again, man. Is this your third appearance?
Third time, yeah, going for the hat trick here.
I like it. The odds, may the odds be ever in your favor, or is that the wrong?
Never tell me the odds.
There you go.
Well played.
Speaking of odds and wild cards, next we're going to bring in LJ Sowder.
Hey, Dan, how's it going? Hey, gentlemen, how are you doing tonight?
Good.
So good to have you, man. Now, this is your second appearance, right?
Yes. This is my second time. I'm getting close to the hat trick like Colby, but we'll get there soon.
I have faith in you. My friend. So good to have you for sure. And then rounding out our starting five here tonight is Tom the Holocron Gross.
Well, hello, everybody. It's great to be here. And wow, what a great group. Ross, Colby, LJ, so glad to be on with you guys tonight.
Oh, man. I'm excited. I think the Force did this on purpose because this is a really tough one to talk about. And so I knew that seeing all your smiling faces would help because this is a tough one. This is pathos at its absolute finest, victory and death. We start the show with this haunting choral opening. The music, Ross, throughout this entire thing has been a very, very powerful tool. Of course it is because it's Star Wars. But I think this is just, again, it kind of kicks off where Shattered let off with the music kind of driving the point.
Yeah, I mean, everything about it was epic. This was cinematic. This was film. This wasn't watching animation on TV. Like this was taking it to that extra level, and within the storytelling and seeing how, going from the previous episode where there were so many stretches without dialogue where the music took over by itself. That didn't happen in quite the long stretches this time, but it was still super impactful, and you got that, just kind of the Maul music is what I felt like, as in Darth Maul music, really showing the desperation of things that were going on. As they were in trouble. They were in trouble throughout the entire episode. As Brex and Ahsoka and the three droids are trying to figure this thing out, and the music really just made the hair on your neck stand up throughout all of it.
Right. It was good. Well, I mean, while you're up, why don't we just do this? Give me your letter grade and just kind of like a 30-second overall feeling on just this episode.
I'm going to call this an A, just because I think it was. I don't think you can top the previous episode and what that was. So this was kind of, the flight happened and this was landing from there. So still just the empathy that was involved, everything with Ahsoka and her leadership and her purity of what a Jedi should be made this just so super strong. And then just a beautiful ending as well, with Vader making an appearance. So everything there just kind of pulled together. So very solid A. I thought it was beautifully done. And it was emotional.
It was indeed. Colby, what about you? Tell us your letter grade and your overall thoughts on the episode.
Yeah, I think it's a solid A, just like the rest of it. A plus. It's the difference is as thin as a hair, right? The thickness of a hair. The music, the visuals. Ahsoka and her value of the clones' lives. She says over and over, "I'm not the one that's going to be to kill them," or stuff like that we may be talking about. But the difficulties that they faced and the fight for their life, the desperation that they showed Rex and Ahsoka. I mean, just the value of their own lives and how desperate they were to keep fighting so that they could keep fighting another day. That was so powerful. The whole episode to me was just gripping. It was a gripping storytelling, and it was a great cap off to a great arc. Probably, my favorite arc of the entire 7 seasons, all 7 seasons. And there are some good ones, but this one is tough to beat.
No, I agree. In a very crowded field, I think I agree. I mean, it's definitely the most powerful arc of all of them. And there have been a lot of incredible ones. LJ, what about you? I know you're a huge fan of Clone Wars too, obviously. What's your letter grade and thoughts on this episode?
Well, I'm going to go just a little bit lower. I'm going to say it's maybe an A minus. And the reason being, so what Ross and Colby both said, it's beautiful. It's cinematic. The music is incredible. It's really hard to keep tension when you know where all the pieces are going to end up anyway. I mean, you know who's going to survive and who's not going to survive for the most part. So to be able to still keep you on the edge of your seat is a monumental task, and they landed it. My only, I don't want to say gripe. I was hoping to end on a more positive note, and it just felt, while it was beautiful, it felt like a lot of it happened for nothing, and I was just hoping to give a little more positive. We can get to that more of the ending than anything. Okay,
interesting perspective. And Tom, what about you?
Yeah, I look forward to talking about that end, LJ, because I'm not sure that I wanted to have that positive. I think it left me feeling the way it did. And I will say this, I would agree with all three of you that it was an A to A minus until we hear the mechanical breathing. And that launched it into an A plus range for me because expected, it was not.
Okay, so yeah, it's an A plus for me. Absolutely highest marks. I still think the first episode in this arc is the best one because everything is spot on, pitch perfect, and I see LJ and Ross agree as well. For me, the overall tone of this, and I just watched again, as I'm sure we all did before we did the show tonight, the overall tone and atmosphere of this thing is extremely oppressive. Like, I mean, I'm not a claustrophobic person by any stretch of the imagination, but watching this, I felt like the walls were closing in on me like they were Ahsoka. And I don't think you need to be a Star Wars fan to appreciate that when you're watching this. I mean, it's an animated show about robots and aliens with glowing swords and all kinds of crazy stuff that really just doesn't matter. But my goodness, when you're watching it, it matters. It feels gripping. It feels intense. It is overwhelmingly sad, overwhelmingly chaotic. And I honestly can't imagine a strong way to end the series. And I mean, I love it. I'm very, very happy with it. And I'm also very, very sad. So we launch right into it, Colby. And I don't know about you, but when at the end of Shattered, when the doors were starting to be blasted on the other side where they're trying to get through, part of me thought it was going to be Maul, but then we see right away there's no ambiguity here. It's the clones. They're trying to break in, and there's Ahsoka again has this grace under pressure. But kind of talk about their last moments together before Ahsoka blasts through.
I said something about it already when we were doing the overview, but her quote, "We're not trying to kill anyone," is what stood out to me. Like you said, grace under pressure. You never felt, in a panicked situation, you never felt any panic from her. Always under control and always knowing what she wanted to do and where she was going to go. And I like to make the joke, not a joke, but it's an observation, really. To me, she's almost like the Captain America of Star Wars. She has this this compass that points due north, and she knows why it points there, and she knows how she's going to accomplish her goals. And she now, this iteration of her, she is so resolute in her abilities and and so comfortable with who she is now after what we've seen earlier with the arc where she left the Jedi Order, and then again with the sisters. She's this fully realized character. And in this chaotic situation where there's death everywhere, she is not going to continue to spread that death. She knows that. So they get that door open and they go out into this chaotic situation, but I never felt like she felt 1 second she was going to be overwhelmed by any of the circumstances.
Right. You know, fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Ahsoka is never afraid. And there are a lot of really significant reasons and examples of why she should be. And just hearing what you had said, it kind of triggered for me. Well, yeah, she isn't even close to the dark side. So of course she's not afraid. She is fully realized. She is incredible. LJ, when she said, you know, and they say, you know, Maul's gone. I mean, there's that great sequence where she force pushes the door open and they just are taking out clones left and right, and Rex is stunning them. But talk about Rex's reaction to the fact that Ahsoka releases Maul for a diversion.
Well, I love when he said, "Well, that's one word for it." Because while Ahsoka didn't try to kill clones, she did release Maul, which is a virtual killing machine upon the clones. So she did, I don't want to say she was responsible for a number of her deaths. Eventually, they were all going to die on that ship anyway. But yeah, I did like Rex was like, no, that's more than a diversion. You put an agent of chaos on the field to let the chips fall where they may.
Right. I agree. Tom, then eventually we do get to see Maul. And I think it's important to note that he doesn't really speak in this episode until the very, very end. Talk about his appearance, his first appearance when he shows up.
Well, we saw him when we talked about last episode how brutal he was and some of the techniques that he was using from, you know, impaling clones and whatnot. But here he's a little bit more conniving by stealing a clone's radio transmitter on his wrist, and so he has a bit more of a plan for escape. And it becomes very clear that this is about escape from Maul. He doesn't have any intent to try to commandeer this Republic warship. He wants to escape. In fact, his engagement with Ahsoka is very brief, and so he has plans. And I, you know, so I just think, you know, Maul is ready to move on. He understands, and now he fully realizes what the Emperor has given, or what he's played. The cards are on the table now, and so Maul knows his plan. Yes, and I think, and anybody feel free to weigh in. Just kind of go like this if you want to weigh in on this one. But what I think is important about this episode, this part of the episode, is the differences in how the two of them use the Force. Right? You'd mentioned, Colby, that she says, "I'm not going to kill anybody." And, you know, Rex says later, well, they don't feel the same way about this. So she is using the force pushing. Maul is trying, like he is going out of his way to savagely kill people. Go ahead, LJ.
And also, I mean, even beyond what we're seeing now, if you think about when Obi-Wan and Yoda go back to the Jedi Temple, they have no qualms at all about, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, about ending as many clones to get back into the temple as possible. So the only one that's actually trying to save lives at this point is Ahsoka. Everyone else is back in the Bible.
No, that's an excellent point. I mean, and I think it's too, like, it's very skillful the way that they use the Force. Go ahead, Ross.
Yeah, and all I'm thinking about is how blown away I was in Rogue One when Vader came through the hallway. And I saw so much of that from Maul. It was, I have all the power and I can do whatever I want right now. And he just unleashed it. And it was terrible to see for the clones, but it was so awesome to see how he's been able to evolve, and then seeing the aspect of Ahsoka versus Maul in terms of both of them have been spit out by the machine at this point. One from the good side, one from the bad side, but they've both kind of been played as individuals, and now they're forced to fend for themselves. So it's, again, without getting too societal on things, it's such amazing storytelling.
It is, and I also think it's important to point out that when Maul's using the Force in this part, the way he's dispatching the clones, it's very savage. It's very animalistic. There's a lot of like animal baser nature stuff here. The growth in idiosyncrasies of Maul that we saw in the first 2 episodes, especially the second one, completely gone here, which I think is good and still makes him a well-rounded character. But he's just all savage. He's all in, like he is the caged animal put back into the corner, and he's just cutting through everybody.
Well, and it makes me think back. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, good.
It made me think back to Phantom Menace when he's waiting for the energy fields to go down, and he's pacing back and forth like a lion waiting to attack. So that's what I felt like it came back to. There is that animal that is within him.
Absolutely. And Colby?
He literally pulls a ship out of hyperspace. Literally. He pulls the hyperdrive out of where they're supposed to be and pulls that ship. He's savage. And LJ, I think it's such a good point about how Ahsoka's value of life, completely opposite from Maul, because no one on that ship is of any import to him except himself. And he's going to find a way to save his own life. And he's become so unraveled. Like we said before in the beginning of this arc, he is more calculating. He's in control. He rules Mandalore as, the puppet government. And now all of it's gone. Everything is broken, and he's going to do whatever he has to take. It's such a great juxtaposition between him and Ahsoka, because everything Ahsoka is, Maul isn't.
They literally couldn't be a better balance in the Force between the two of them. Go ahead, Tom.
I find this to be fascinating, the way this conversation has gone, because I'm going to be honest with you. In my 2 pages of notes, Maul's name shows up twice. And I appreciate this because I guess I hadn't really thought of at this point of the storyline. I kind of thought Maul's story has taken place. His main goal is just to get out. But I love the juxtaposition you guys are bringing up, and the treatment of the two of them as foils of the Force. So I just want to toss that in there and say this has really gone a different way than I expected. So thank you. I appreciate that.
That's great. The power of rhetoric and conversation. LJ, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I've always heard Maul's always referred to as Sisyphus, and Freddie Prinze Jr. refers to him as that, and he keeps just rolling the ball up the hill, and at the end it just falls back down. So basically, at the end of this episode, he's back to where he started from. He's just, I don't want to say a rat in a cage, but he's on his own, and he's fighting to survive. Just basically like at the beginning of his arc in the Clone Wars, season 2 or 3. Whereas Ahsoka's got this fully realized arc at the end. Right.
No, it's true. In the difference between the hero and the villain. So Ross, eventually they make it out to where basically we set the stage for our final showdown, and Rex has this kind of poetic and somewhat sad line where he says, if they weren't trying to kill us, I'd be proud. I mean, of course everyone is talking a lot about Ahsoka, and rightfully so. But Rex is also key to this arc. He's key to the Clone Wars. He's key to the story of Star Wars. Talk about kind of his internal conflict at this moment.
Yeah, he talks about it's his brothers out there, and he knows what they're going to do. But he knows that, like Ahsoka knows, he knows that it's not necessarily their fault, but he wants to survive. He wants to help Ahsoka survive. So that's so much of what he's dealing with. So, they're exhausting every opportunity of what can we do to not hurt them. So, and that's Ahsoka offering the idea, a la Anakin style of let's be unorthodox and come up with something and try to try to finagle our way out of this. And Rex is on board, and that's all about trusting Ahsoka again. So it's him trusting her no matter what the odds are. And again, having that beautiful moment where she takes his helmet off to explain this to him. And then her exact quote is, "You're a good soldier, Rex. So is every one of those men down there. They may be willing to die, but I'm not the one who's going to kill them."
Right.
And that, I think, wakes him up again, and understanding of, yeah, this is why I follow you. This is why all my brothers follow you. And this is why I will continue to do it.
It's great as we're recording this. Those of you listening can't tell, but we have video on so we can see each other's reactions. And basically every time everyone talks, everyone's shaking their head up and down. We're like Star Wars bobbleheads of wisdom. I love it. And it's true because I think that's
it's like a Bohemian Rhapsody from Wayne's World.
Excellent. Yes. Well, okay, so Colby, let's talk about, and before we get to that part that Ross just mentioned with Ahsoka and Rex, which is super key. We're definitely going to circle back to that. But I feel like, and I'm asking you this, Colby, specifically because I know you're a huge Stranger Things fan. But this moment, and a moment towards the end, Kevin kind of relies very heavily on synthesizer to evoke terror and panic. And as the hangar doors open up and we see how close they are to this moon, there's only moons in Star Wars, by the way. There aren't planets. I'm sure we've all noticed that by now. Talk about how the power of the synthesizer for that moment.
I can't overstate the power of the music in this entire arc, really the whole season. Kevin Kiner, he just took it to another level. And I know last week you guys talked about how much silence there was and the lack of dialogue. And there was a little bit in this near the end, but not as much towards the beginning. But he just nailed it. I even turned to my son in the scenes last week when they were taking Maul through in that terrible force coffin that the Mandalorians had. I looked at my son and said, if you took the music out of these scenes and just showed the scenes, they're boring. They're nothing. Yeah, they're telling you a story, but there's nothing too gripping about these. It's the music that kicks it up and the dread that is implanted in you by this music. And the same thing of the scene you're talking about, when they see that moon and how close it is, it's massive. It's huge in the bay doors. And then the bay doors open for the ships and they see the legions of clones that are waiting for them. The music is, it's haunting. It's gripping, just as the visual storytelling is. And I'm telling you, I think that music is probably the most important aspect to all of Star Wars, below story and the characters. It would be a much different thing than it is if it weren't for the music. And this is another one of those points. It just hits the nail on the head.
I love it. And it very much, I remember as a kid, I may have told this on a story years ago, or on the show years ago, they were doing a profile of John Williams. And they said, here's John Williams has created all these different Oscar-winning themes for all these incredible films. And he's very much like the oxygen for many, many generations. And they show him walking across the street. And at first they played the Superman theme. And then they rewound the footage, and then they played the Jaws theme. He starts walking across. And they talked about, what's different about that approach. So when the bay doors open and they have this heavy synthesizer, it's very kind of 80s horror kind of stuff. It becomes more than, there's a planet, there's a moon. It becomes, they're going to die. The gravitational pull of this moon is going to break things apart, much like their lives have been broken apart or shattered because of everything that's happened before it. And then, LJ, there's this great sequence where all the hangar doors open up and all the clones start flooding in. Talk about that sequence.
Well, it gives you a hopeless feeling. Oh my goodness. They're not going to be, if they do get through this, they're going to have to take out a lot of clones, which they don't want to do. It's really going to be hard to handle that. Plus, you see all the clones with the Tano face, Tano skin on their helmet, and you can feel the betrayal, even though it's not really on them, but just the sadness in that. And then to see, like, to Ross's point, or was it Colby's, to talk about just how Rex almost broke when he saw all that.
Mm.
Yeah, to me, when they're flooding in, like, they remind me of locusts or ants, or just, and almost zombies in a way, like this rapid acceleration and just the cold nature of things. Very, very poignant. So, Tom, and I want everybody to weigh in on this one as well. And Ross, you started to talk about this. Ahsoka says, I don't want to hurt him. In fact, she says this great thing, like, they may be willing to die, but I am not going to be the one to kill them, because Rex is there. Well, they have no problem. They have no qualms about killing you, killing us. Rex is upset. And I, go ahead, Tom, take it away.
Yeah, I think so. Earlier, I'd said that I'd written down Maul's name twice in this whole episode. Rex is the absolute opposite. Rex, in my mind, when I watched this, was the focus of the episode, next to, of course, Ahsoka. But I felt like this whole arc, we've been, it's really been hammered into our heads that Ahsoka sees the clones in a different way. And she has really come to a point where she and Rex have this human interaction, and it's a human interaction, a relationship. It is not general or commander and soldier. It's two equals, and Ahsoka has really built that up. And so when she says, there are two moments. One is at the beginning when they're in the room while they're burning out the door. There's that one, and then there's this one in the command center of the bay. And now help me out here. Is the second one where she takes his helmet off? I think that it is, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so she lifts his helmet off, and I thought there was something so, like, taking a soldier's helmet off is a real personal thing. Now, I've never been a soldier, so I don't know. But yeah, if you go to the Mandalorian or things like that, so when she takes that helmet off, it's such I've said it, but it's a human thing, and it's a respect and a friendship thing. And you discover that he's got tears because he knows what this means. And so it just gave me goosebumps when that moment happened, because here Jesse's down there. When you talk about, the Maul pacing back and forth, we see the same image with Jesse and the clones. They're all lined up, and he's pacing back and forth in front of them. And I can just hear in his mind that he's repeating the Order 66, treason and death and execution and all that, getting his troops all fired up, and they're up there alone. And so it's such a great moment between Ahsoka and Rex. And and of course we're thinking to the future as well. And we know where their relationship goes. We know that she feels trust to send the crew of the Ghost to find him. And so why would that trust have been established? Well, here we're seeing it. It's being created right before our eyes. And the plan is magnificent, but I'll let you guys respond before we talk about the plan.
And another thing that I think is, and very well said, of course, another thing that I think is important about this is that Rex does show vulnerability. The fact that he's got a tear stain, I think, is lovely. I think there's a lot of important gender stuff going on here. I think it's important for Rex to be vulnerable and to cry. And I think it's important for Ahsoka to not be afraid and to not wilt or be scared under pressure. These are good characters, right? Gender is not even an issue here per se, because they're just strong, solid characters. And this is how I hope that my son sees male and female characters. The vulnerability, the well-roundedness, the concern, the bravery, the tenacity, the not give up, the can do. It's amazing. And I also think it's important, and this is something that I'm always keen on, is that this is a moment of real emotion, a real tenderness of relationship that isn't romantic, right? There's compassion there, and a connection, but it's not romantic. And I think that's mature. I think that's a mature storytelling. This is a wonderful friendship, and I'm very grateful that we have moments like this in popular culture.
And that, Dan, that makes me think of, as you're saying that and recognizing that from the show, very much Cassian Andor and Jyn Erso, on the beach with Rogue One, as things are ending there, it is, even if there is any hint at anything else, like, it is respect. We just battled through this. So yeah, I see that. And it's more of that Star Wars DNA coming through of, it's about family. It's about the relationship. And I think you said it wonderfully there.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's complete intimacy, but it's not intimate. I mean, I don't think it's even in the realm of possibility. And I think that's wonderful. Colby, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was also going to say how earned it is, because you don't just get these two characters thrown at you and forced to this point. No pun intended. This is a payoff of 7 seasons and 12 years of hard work and exceptional storytelling.
Amen to that. So we get the plan. And Tom, you talk about how much you like the plan. So we'll just go backwards this time. I'll start with you, Tom. The plan is what? Tell us about the plan. I forgot.
You forgot. Okay. Well, let me tell you about it, because I had this in the back of my mind all along, that how does Ahsoka survive Order 66? She's not a Jedi. And so I was so glad that they didn't go this route for me, of course, but it made sense to me when she says, I have an idea. And I'd like to go back and watch this whole season. Well, I guess since the Martez sisters arc. So the last 8 episodes, how many times she says, I have an idea, which to me symbolizes what we've been talking about all along, in that she's in control. She is in balance of herself, because she is constantly, I have an idea. It may not be the best, but she's not panicking and she's coming up with good plans. And so so she has Rex take him down to Jesse and the clones and surrender. And Rex does his best. Now it's a stall plan, because her 3 droids, and once again, I'm going to reflect what I said last time. I appreciate completely as a librarian that Ahsoka uses her resources that she has around her. And it's those 3 charming droids. And so they are really the plan, but they make this attempt for Rex to make the case that Ahsoka is not a Jedi, therefore Order 66 does not apply. Jesse gives it, about 3 seconds consideration before deciding that that's not the way it's going to go.
I love it. So yeah, Jesse is important too, because Jesse says something really key, LJ. I'm not sure if everybody caught it or not, but I caught it the second time through. But while Rex is stalling, because he very much is stalling, he says, execute it or I will. Not her, not Ahsoka, not Ahsoka Tano, not the Jedi, but it. Talk to me about that, LJ.
Well, it's a way of dehumanizing the person. Once Order 66 comes into effect, they're no longer their generals. They're no longer their friends. They're no longer the people they've fought and died with over the past few years. They're just objects. They're objects to be eliminated. No better than the droids that they kill later on in the episode. It's just heartless. It's just in their programming. And I do like the fact that Ahsoka and Rex are stalling similar to the way Anakin stalled at the beginning of the Siege of Mandalore as well, when he was fighting the droids. So that was a nice little callback. But yeah, just the way that you're she's no longer a person. She is a objective to fulfill.
Right, and I also think it brings to light even more scarily that Palpatine is evil for the sake of evil. He appears to have no soul or conscience, and he has taken this group, this brotherhood that Rex has referred to, even in this episode, to completely change. Wow, the savage irony of them wearing her colors on their helmet while they're referring to her as it, and not killing, not arresting, but executing her, very much like assassin style, I think is really, really jarring. So Colby, you mentioned watching this with your family. Did they have a visceral reaction to this sequence as well?
Yes, and one of the joys of this of Disney Plus, really, it has started since Disney Plus, is waking up very early on Friday mornings, watching the newest episode of whatever it might be it The Mandalorian in the fall, and now with the Clone Wars. But my younger son, I always ask Thursday night, I say, so Clone Wars tomorrow? And he's so good to his dad. He says, yep, without a second thought. So I go and knock on his door. We come out, and I'm always, side-eyeing and looking to see what his reactions are to these things. And it's so much fun, and it always has been. And then for me, it's a great blessing because my older son, who is buried under, he's a junior in college, he's buried under homework right now. So he's not quite up for the 7 a.m. viewings on Friday mornings, but he'll watch them later in the day. So then I get my second viewing with my older son, and it's always been the greatest experiences is to watch Star Wars around your family. Yes. My wife even joined in on the viewings near the end of the season. And just before we started recording this, she was sitting next to me watching. And yes, the eyes, the reactions to the visuals, the tension, and that's how you know that you're watching excellent storytelling, because you don't have to be a Star Wars fan to be gripped by what's going on in front of the screen. But it's even that much more thrilling for us that know all the things that we know that have come before us.
It's so magical. Tom?
Yeah, I just have to reflect that. I've got half of my household, including myself, are totally into this. My oldest daughter and I, and these last 4 episodes, there have been other eyes in the room while we've watched, and I've caught some extra eyes watching Clone Wars this year. There were these last 4 episodes, and it goes back to that storytelling and the tension and the drama and the music and the characters and the silence. All of it. And I do the same sidelong, except this time I'm seeing, is anyone else paying attention besides just me and my oldest daughter? And sure enough, even my wife, I've caught watching these last 4 episodes. Now don't say anything, Dan, because she'll deny it, but I know she's been watching.
I love it. Well, that's good. Well, I mean, it is Mother's Day. I mean, yeah, we bring out the best, right? I love it. I'll tell you, let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we're going to finish our discussion of this incredible episode, Victory and Death. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
As everyone knows, MEI and Mouse Fan Travel is the official travel partner of Coffee with Kenobi. They are wonderful and have always been so great and kind and supportive to me and my family, both for our travel and for travel for the show. Naturally, recently, travel is very, very different. In fact, it's not going on right now at all with everything going on in the world. And the good news is that with MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, they are going to help you have peace of mind. MEI and Mouse Fan Travel wants you to know that you are valued clients, but you're a part of the MEI family. They are putting their decades of experience to work to guide you through this uncertain time. They are going to be your advocates and are going to keep you informed and prepared to travel with confidence when you are ready, when you are comfortable. And they are suggesting that you postpone but don't cancel. They're still open for business. They will help you dream of your next trip. It doesn't have to be in 2020. It can be 2021 and beyond. This is why I love and trust MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, because they will take care of it and me. And they will you too. They're going to be looking up things and helping me and all of you to have peace of mind so that when you're ready, when things have settled down, MEI and Mouse Fan Travel will be the place for you to go. If you have any questions, be sure to reach out to MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, of course, or go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefan-travel.
We are back, and Ross, we're going to start off with you. I want to talk about Jesse here. First off, I didn't quite pick up immediately that it was Jesse, but I always watch the first time with the captions on it, and it's very clearly says Jesse with a colon to indicate when he's about to speak. Talk about Jesse's role here and his inability to think for himself.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
because I think it goes beyond the fact that it's Order 66. I think there's more at play here.
Yeah, it's, again, coming from the sports world a little bit, it's that next man up mentality where I think he's excited to an extent to be in charge a little bit, and he's taking over and knowing like, hey, here's my opportunity to go and do this right now. So, showing that he can hold Rex accountable, showing that he can hold Ahsoka accountable. That's not something any of us want to see, but per his job and per what he's supposed to do, he's following it to letter of the law. So it becomes one of those things where it's, it may not be the person deciding. It is, here's the role that I am supposed to fulfill, and I am now going to fulfill this role.
Right. And it's scary too. Yeah. It's chilling. I think another thing, and this is sort of a common thing. Go ahead, LJ.
I was just going to say, we keep hearing good soldiers follow orders, good soldiers follow orders. I mean, he followed it. It's sad because a few episodes ago, Ahsoka was trying her darndest to save him from Maul, and look where that ends up.
And more irony, it just chills you to the bone. A powerful thing that children's literature does, I think, particularly well, is that it emphasizes the power of choice, the power of critical thinking and free will, which I think is why in real history, sometimes books and reading have been outlawed or banned or books burned. Because what is the danger of when you read, you start to think for yourself. The fact that Jesse can't think for himself is an example of the despot that Palpatine is, and the fact that he's taken away agency, he's taken away choice, he's taken away the ability to create your own path. He is forcing everyone to do what he wants. And there's no greater evil than that, in my opinion. So the fact that Jesse, I mean, no one takes off their helmets at all, even during damage or combat or just the happenstance of battle. They all keep these things on because they've become under this umbrella of this horrific person. And I think that might be maybe the scariest thing about it for me.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to see that and to know, like, there are people where they're stuck by decisions, and sometimes it's not their decision, but they're afraid of the consequences, so they have to follow it, and that's frightening. It's
really scary. So then, go ahead, Colby.
Just going to mention another earned moment, because this isn't just a random clone that's there. This is a clone that we know. He has a backstory, not just from the Siege of Mandalore, but going back through the entirety of the series. He's an ARC trooper, not just a clone trooper. He's an ARC trooper. So we know that he's got skills that other clones may not have, at least leadership skills. And on a third or fourth viewing of this one, when he stepped on, I sort of grimaced, because it sort of hit me where it was supposed to, that this is just another victim of this tragic order that is put into place by this soulless and evil character. No choice, and it's not just some random clone standing there, but we know who he is, and just another piece of powerful storytelling.
It really, really is. So Colby, continuing on that thread, this is when Maul shows up. I'm assuming this is when you talk about him again, time in your notes. But talk about the escape sequence. I feel like it very much supports what we talked about earlier about him being like a caged animal, or like a rabid, ferocious, purely instinctual being. But talk about that escape.
First, I love the droids. Tom, you've mentioned them quite a bit, and I can't echo it enough. They steal every scene they're in. They're so charming. I love, the Cheap and his similarities to Chopper, and the fact that Filoni got to have another moment of voicing a droid like that. R7, I didn't realize this, but my younger son did when he first saw R7. He said, "Oh, that's R7. That's Ahsoka's droid," and I didn't realize it until later. And that adds another another element of sadness because he's another victim. So when they turn that wonderful little knob that fixes everything in Star Wars, and the floor drops out from the clones right in front of them, then you almost have this sense of, okay, they have a fighting chance because the numbers have been cut so drastically. So Ahsoka's got her lightsabers out and she's starting to deflect, and it's like Batman and Robin. I swear, those two are a dynamic duo because Rex is just stunning left and right, and Ahsoka's deflecting left and right, and you see Maul just booking it for that shuttle, like the coward that he is. He sees his salvation, sees his way out, and nothing's going to stop him. I don't know if you want to go this far, but when Ahsoka catches up to him and he turns, the last thing I think he says is, "You wanted this chaos," I believe was the word he used. And the intonation and the influx of his voice is he's just unraveled. You wanted this chaos. And he's throwing things at Ahsoka. And Ahsoka desperately wants that shuttle too. So the drama has just ratcheted up again. And the performances across the board in this, especially the Siege of Mandalore, by these cast members has been so it's gripping. I keep using the same word, gripping, but it really is. And you hear that in Ahsoka's plan is now unraveling in front of her, just like Maul is unraveling when he's saying what he said to Ahsoka.
Oh, I agree. Well said. And LJ, before we get to Ahsoka's choice, because I think I'd like us all to win on Ahsoka's choice, but I think you mentioned earlier about the droids, and Colby just talked about the droids too. Talk about their demise, because I was watching this with my son, and I thought, I don't know if I want him to see that.
That was extremely brutal. I mean, you're talking. Yes. It's not. I think I can't remember which one. It caught a blaster bolt at a distance, but the two of them, the clones came up on them point blank and just unloaded multiple shots. It was brutal. If it was a live action show and if it was a person, you'd cover your kid's eyes.
Yes.
It was visceral and with anger and just terrifying. And I think we can put to bed that's Chopper now. I don't think anyone can come back and say that one droid is Chopper. I think the guy ended it.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing, but no, definitely not.
Yeah, there was twists and Twitter chatter about it, but yeah.
Oh, interesting.
But still, people are going to put that out there, right?
Sure. Well, Chopper's a Force ghost, obviously. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You heard it here first. Put that in the holocron, Mr. Gross. Yeah.
Got it.
Hashtagging it now.
Yes. And for the record, Leland, if you're listening, Tom is not trying to take the holocron position. This is just the antics of some Central Illinois podcasters having a little fun. I feel like. Say that again.
But if the job comes open, I mean, he's
That's right. We know some people. All right, so I agree with you, LJ. It's very execution gangster style, and it was relentless. And it kind of took my breath away. Like, oh my goodness! It also kind of symbolizes to me the absolute death of any innocence, because before it happens, the droids are kind of chuckling, having a little bit of fun. Because there's been plenty of moments of fun in the Clone Wars, and let's be honest, clones getting rid of droids is not new in the Clone Wars, but now it's different because these droids are not enemies; they're trying to help their friends. And these clones just fought side by side with these astromechs, and then this brutality. I really do think it's just the clones' innocence is completely eradicated in a savage way. That's upsetting. Mm-hmm. But then we get to, and again, I want everybody to weigh in on this. Tom, we'll start with you. Ahsoka's choice. We had known through the Ahsoka novel that Ahsoka saved Rex's life in the Siege of Mandalore, and this is the moment to me. Talk about her choice. Maul will set the stage. Maul is escaping on this cruiser, and Ahsoka is using the Force to try to pull him back. It's pretty arguable, I think, that it could eventually happen. The problem is that she's being blasted at, but maybe more importantly, the fact that Rex is being blasted at. Tom, talk about that whole sequence.
Yeah, I felt like many times during these last two episodes, I felt like I was watching in Revenge of the Sith when Order 66 does happen, and you see the helplessness of many of the Jedi as they attempt to deflect, as they attempt to survive, but they go down immediately. I felt like there are numerous places during these last two episodes where I felt like Ahsoka was at that level, but she manages to overcome. Some of it is that balance. Some of it is circumstance. Some of it is she didn't have the surprise. She just is becoming overwhelmed. And here she is trying to maintain her, or I suppose keep her capture, but also keep her escape there at the same time by pulling that shuttle back down. And I absolutely believe without a doubt that in a different circumstance where her attention isn't divided, she pulls that shuttle down. Now, what happens with Maul when she does that, I have no idea. But the reason it doesn't work out for her is because she's becoming overwhelmed by the clones. But more importantly, as you mentioned, Dan, the Rex is in danger as well, and so she needs to cut her losses and choose life over capture, I suppose, in this instance. And so she sets free Maul to face him another day, and turns to her friend who we've had those multiple moments with here, especially in this episode, as well as this whole story arc. And she chooses to go with her, as was said, LJ, I think you said it, her Robin decides to, her partner in crime, and makes the right choice.
She does. It's easy, but it's not easy, right? It's easy for her to make that choice because she knows if this thing gets away, then it becomes even less likely they're going to escape. But it doesn't matter. She's not going to let Rex get pinned down. In many ways, he's just as much a victim as her, if not more so, because of the cost of everything with his brothers to having to fight. Knowing. I can imagine. I mean, let's think about this. It's pretty morbid, but I apologize, but bear with me. It'd be like being at a big family event, and all of a sudden everyone in your family is trying to kill you. I mean, that's got to be what it feels like for Rex. And so, Ross, when you think about it that way, Rex's value in his internal compass is even more overwhelming to me.
Yeah, I mean, the emotional scarring of that moment and of these two episodes unfolding, it's how do you deal with that level of betrayal? And you see that frustration from him before Ahsoka brings him back and grounds him a little bit, saying, "Hey, these are good men," and she refers to them as men, not clones as well. So again, just that level of respect that she constantly brings to it. And I think she just stays true to herself through everything. She stands up to the Jedi Council. She stands up to anyone else throughout this season. And she wants to do the right thing. Her moral compass is so strong. And that's the hero that so many people need. And it's more of that pure hero. So I think that's her decision-making, how she comes to that, and how she just helps Rex understand that, hey, you know what? This is difficult, but we're going to get through this, and we're going to do it together because everyone else may be under different orders, but you and I are still family. And I think Rex appreciates that, and that's why he's willing to keep, as he's without any shield. He doesn't have a lightsaber to deflect blaster bolts coming at him, but he's still putting himself in harm's way to help her. So it really is that they have to work together to get out of this. And I think Rex appreciates it more and more for every bolt that she takes for him. And eventually she gets hit a couple of times. Yeah. So I think that's incredible as you're watching that, and she bounces right back up because she knows she needs to get him over to the ship.
Yes. Colby, go ahead.
It's another selfless act by Ahsoka. And I love she's repaying his loyalty with loyalty. Mm-hmm. And he said it, loyalty is everything to the clones. And as much as they are loyal to each other, an argument can be made that they are more loyal to whatever Jedi they were serving, and Rex served with Ahsoka, and Rex was loyal to Ahsoka. So the tragedy that he's trying to live through, being betrayed by his brother, by his family, she symbolizes the one last thing that he can be loyal to give him that spark to keep fighting. And she repays that by letting go of that shuttle and letting Maul escape, because she's selfless and she's loyal to him as he's loyal to her.
Right. And in speaking of that sequence in music, we're even told by Kevin Kiner in the writing of Dave Filoni, you hear the Force theme when Ahsoka lets it go, when she stops using the Force, and then she turns around to save her friend. And the Force music comes in very, very strong, but not bombastic. And I think that's a kind of a perfect way to describe Ahsoka too as a character, really. But then we get something that I don't remember seeing in Star Wars. And feel free to correct me if you can think of another example. But Ahsoka, LJ, uses this 360 move with lightsabers. It cuts this hole in the ground, boom, drops down, and then we get this Y-wing sequence that just had me on the edge of my seat. Talk about all of that.
Yeah, but the stakes felt so high. And yeah, you're right. I don't think, obviously we've seen lightsabers cut through walls and doors and whatever. I've never seen someone just use the Force to basically create a hole to drop down. It was a really, really excellent animation. It was amazing. And then just the tension building up as they're trying to get to that Y-wing desperately, and then finally a Force push to throw Rex up there as she's still deflecting. And again, she's getting hit, but she's still popping up to save her friend. It was just, you're right. Again, I go back. We know where these characters end up, but the fact that they can make us still wonder, oh my gosh, how are they going to get through this? It's amazing storytelling. It's amazing animation. And Kevin Kiner's score just ramping up the tension through that just makes it fantastic.
And that's a great point too, because like you said, we know where they're going to show up, and show up 19 years later, or 15, 16, 17 years later, depending on what season you're in of Rebels. But the fact that I could feel it as well, Jay, like the physical and emotional exhaustion, which Ahsoka doesn't show until the very end, when she starts getting hit, like Ross mentioned. That's when I thought, she's tired. Like she's exhausted. She's going to collapse pretty soon. And then obviously things go up to a whole other level. It is remarkable storytelling that we can believe that these characters we know are going to live, that we really feel in our gut like they're going to die. It's incredible.
Yeah, I was going to mention the phrase you used at the beginning of this episode, where the walls, you felt like the walls closing in around you. No more, so not more than this scene. You literally felt they're showing the signs of fatigue, and like you said, we knew they were going to be okay, but there's that moment where you're wondering, how are they going to survive this? They have to be exhausted. They're taking more hits than ever before, and you felt the walls just closing in, and fortunately for us, Ahsoka being Ahsoka and Rex being Rex, found the way out.
It's great too, because and Tom, I'm going to throw this one to you. Ahsoka, we just mentioned a little bit ago, she saves Rex. Like, if not for that moment, Rex isn't with us. But then Rex gets a chance to, even things out, very Han and Luke-like, right? I'm going to guess, and you and I haven't talked about this. That's usually what we try to do. Like, we don't talk before we talk on the show. But I'm going to guess that your feelings of being underwater, did you feel that during this escape when Ahsoka is cascading through space, into the atmosphere, and Rex is looking and he can't find her? Talk about that. Oof, if you can.
This sequence was unbelievable, and it took me till the second time through, actually the third time through watching this, that I flashed back to the initial siege of Mandalore, when she jumps out of the troop transport and she does that hop back and forth, and that amazing offensive sequence through the sky. This was the same thing, and I had to also go back to I'll meet you. What does she say to him in that when they're coming down to Mandalore? I'll see you at the beat you to the front, or
see at the bottom.
See at the bottom, or something like that. And it was the opposite here. She's running for her life, and he needs to meet her at the bottom first to catch her, to find where she is, to get into place, to be able to catch her. And so you're right, though. It had that underwater feel, that holding my breath, because the sky is full of smoke. And I just want to talk a little bit about the setting of this warship, and how this entire sequence of this episode is on the warship. It starts, the whole episode starts with the warship in hyperspace. And we've got the silence there. And now, after Maul pulls the hyperdrive out, we have the warship that's just kind of falling apart, which you can almost juxtapose with the beginning of the Revenge of the Sith. And when Grievous's ship is falling to pieces, going to Coruscant. But here we are there in this incredible rescue scene. Oh, and it's a ship that I think is so cool and underutilized by the resistance, by the Republic, let alone the rebellion, the Y-wing. How cool is that ship is here doing this? And then, and so finally she's back and forth, and Rex sees her, and she slips off, and he zooms underneath and gets her, and she's reaching. And finally, when she gets a hold, he pulls up and puts her and she gets in. I wanted to end this description with something that I've got a question about. You may have already explained it, but I find the shot of her sitting in the domed cockpit of the gunner's seat.
Mm-hmm.
She's sitting there in the dome, and all you see is her face.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it seems so innocent, helpless, childlike. What do all of you make of that? I've got some ideas, but I'm curious, because I don't know that I have the right answer, but it's something that really was striking to me.
So LJ, weigh in on that, and then I know Ross was going to say something as well.
Oh, sorry, Ross, I didn't mean to jump in.
You're good.
It felt when I saw you both, Rex and Ahsoka, you just saw, and it's amazing they did it in animation. You saw exhaustion, you saw relief, you saw betrayal, you saw all those emotions. You almost just feel it just melting off of them at that point. I think that it was, for that to be done in animation is incredible. But yeah, that's you can almost see innocence. You're losing your innocence. Your pain of the betrayal. You can just see it just radiating off of that.
I think it's overcoming that exhaustion. Like, it is that, oh wow, after all of that, I just got 1 second to take a breath. And what do you do during that second of that? That decompress that you haven't been able to do for so long. So I think that ties in there. But what I was going to hop in a little bit earlier, Dan, is I referred to this as the Y-Wing ballet. Like, I want to see this as a Cirque du Soleil show in Las Vegas of Ahsoka coming down through all of that, because it was gorgeous and fluid and powerful. And as exhausted as she is, she was still in control with chaos surrounding her. Like, she was in the tornado of Wizard of Oz and jumping from cow to barn to whatever else, finding Rex and taking that moment. So it was beautiful.
It was. Go ahead, Colby.
Yeah, beautifully chaotic. She was surrounded by chaos, yet she still found a way to be graceful and in control. And I really appreciate that pause that they give us, the one, Tom, you just referred to, because it is a pause. It allows us to take a breath with the characters, because we've just been through some very dramatic moments. And also, the longer it went, and you get to see it pause on Rex as well. I think we see Rex before we even see Ahsoka. Maybe I'm messing it up, but you see both of them. And you get this sense of they're both feeling, what am I going to do now? Their entire world gone. It's gone. The Jedi are gone. The clones are gone. they live in this place and they're realizing, it's almost like they're realizing in that moment, where am I? What do I do? And the sadness and the heaviness of that realization, I thought was portrayed so beautifully through these non-human characters we're looking at. It's remarkable.
I felt like thank you all so much for your input on that, because I felt like when she was sitting there, and Colby, exactly as you said, it was a pause. It was, I mean, we've really been through 3 episodes of tension, action, and I felt like it was almost a coming of age moment for Ahsoka. And as eloquently as they could do it in like 3 to 5 seconds of silence and just her sitting there watching this destruction as she is coming out, I saw her in her face. I saw the face that I saw when I read, it was in my mind's eye of when I read Ahsoka.
Yeah.
The novel. And I just thought it was a transitionary period for her. It's almost like when something big happens with your children at school and they're in the back seat of the car on the way home, and you just happen to look in that rearview mirror and they're just sort of reflectively looking out the window. That's exactly what I saw. It was as if Ahsoka was my child and she'd just gone through some sort of a moment. It was beautiful.
Wow. I actually thought, I really like all these. These are all wonderful insights. So thank you all so much for sharing these. I felt like she looked defeated. I think she has begun the stages of grief. I think she's experienced incredible loss and tragedy and trauma. This is trauma. This is absolute trauma. Everyone you love and care about is trying to kill you. She doesn't know about Anakin yet. I mean, that's going to come later. And let's not forget that Rex, was pretty touch and go there for a couple of very key moments. Him saving her saving him. I think she looks defeated, which to me doesn't take away at all from anything that's happened through this 4-part arc. To me, it makes her even more human. And I think that's so important. And at least for me, just for me personally, that's why one of the reasons I like Ahsoka, she's so human, very similar to Luke in The Last Jedi, but I mean in a much more healthy way. She is starting to process because she hasn't had any time to process. And let's be honest, if she does wait to process, then her emotion gets in the way. And that is not the Jedi way, not the Jedi way for her to do it. So it washes over, and we see that transition to the ending of this, where they have taken the time to bury all of these clones, all these men who have tried to kill them in violent, non-honorable style. I tried to destroy them. And she takes the time, they both take time to bury them. She's wearing that robe that reminded me very much of the end of Rebels, which I kind of like the connection there. I'm sure you all noticed that as well. Before we get to Vader, let's all just kind of chime in on kind of the transition from her looking out the cockpit to burying these men. Ross, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think this kind of leads back, and I didn't want to touch on it when I first talked about Jesse on your first question. Mm-hmm. But that was one of the helmets that was focused on. The last one
they show. Mm-hmm.
And it is, that was so much more impactful because it's all the ones painted with her markings on it, and then it's his. And I think that just drove the point home of, hey, this was Jesse. This wasn't just someone who was sent to execute me. Like, this is family. This is someone I knew. And the respect was still there, even after all that exhaustion, to take the time to bury everyone. And they had one shovel, it looked like, as Rex is taking that back to the ship. That's a lot of work for exhausted people. So the respect is there. And I thought that was fantastic.
And Colby?
Smart storytelling. Just the subtlety of this scene. Because when you see Rex walk back to the Y-Wing, I'm sure you all noticed the remains of R7 standing there. It's in a standing position. So even the droids got their moment of honor by these two individuals. And then the sweeping view of all the Ahsoka faces on these helmets. where just 3 episodes before was such a powerful and awe-inspiring and wonderful moment that even Ashley Eckstein has said that she has became emotional when she first saw it, is now just the 180 degrees opposite, because all those clones with her faces looking back at her spent all of their energy and ended up not sacrificing, but giving their lives trying to kill her. And to end on that in this particular scene, I just think is Star Wars poetry.
It is. Oh, well said. LJ, what about you?
Yeah, it was just to piggyback on what Colby and Ross said. It was heartbreaking and beautiful, and to see that they took the time to bury all those clones was just a massive sign of respect. And also Kiner's music at that point, just the single piano key, just hits you right. It's like a gut punch, and then you see all the helmets on the pikes. But again, I really wish it wouldn't have left on such a sad note, especially when Filoni later on in the day says that Star Wars should end with hope. That's the only drawback I have, that I wish it would have ended up on a little more positive note, like Ahsoka or Rex finding someplace else. I don't know. But all in all, it was just beautiful and heartbreaking.
Sure. Absolutely. Tom, anything on that before we go into the Vader?
Yeah, I thought this was a really interesting way to sort of conclude this story before getting to the final. But I saw this, so as Rex is returning, and I saw all the things that you guys had mentioned, the R7, the helmets, Jesse's is the last. But when Rex takes that shovel and hangs it up on the side of the Y-wing, I really saw that as that was his way to bury his past. And here he is without his helmet. Here he is without his chip, and he still has the bandage. And it's helmetless. The chip is gone. It's almost like, and it's funny to say in the new landscape of the Empire, but Rex is free. Rex is finally free. So I felt hope there. And then we see Ahsoka, and Dan, as you mentioned, she's in this outfit that we see later in Rebels, but it's almost like she has made the visual symbolic change to adulthood, and she's put away the Padawan gear. She's made the transition when she went to Mandalore to battle for Mandalore. She had on more Mandalore, she had on some Mandalorian style outfit, but she's even shed that, and now she has this coming of age. I've said it before, but this movement to adulthood, or to travel, or for discovery. And so we see that is there as well. Now, if we didn't know everything that was going to happen going forward, LJ, I'm with you. This feels like a hopeless ending, where I don't see a future, even though it looks like Rex is free. We know what they're facing. They're facing a galaxy of imperial rule that doesn't feel good. But what's interesting is the very next scene is where we see the hope. And I know that's where you want to go, Dan.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, why don't you start with that? Because I hadn't thought of it that way. I certainly think there's a lot with Vader. I mean, you see Ahsoka completely in mourning, completely grieving, void of hope, as you mentioned, LJ. And then there's this wonderful transitional piece of filmmaking where her face morphs into the Imperial shuttle, that we know from Return of the Jedi, where that really started. But tell me why that gave you hope.
So I will admit that when we realize that, these aren't clone troopers anymore. These are stormtroopers and snow troopers. And I remember saying out loud to my daughter, what is this all about? And it kind of blew me away. But so then, do you want me to just go through the whole scene and then we'll break it down?
Yeah, I'd like to have everybody's weigh in on this.
Okay. So basically, and you guys can fill in as you feel the need, but where I saw hope in this is Vader walks through the snow, and he walks up, and he's tiny, compared to the destruction of the warship. He's tiny under that, and we hear his breathing, and he kneels down. I think that's so, to me, that's so important, because when you kneel, there's some kind of submission to that. You kneel before the queen. You kneel before the... And so he kneels down to get Ahsoka's lightsaber. This isn't an accident. Vader didn't show up on this planet, or this moon, rather, to this massive destruction. Oh, hey, look, here's this lightsaber. I mean, he is...
I know I left my keys around here somewhere.
Right. It wasn't that. And so he was drawn here. And what gives me hope is that Ahsoka drew him here. So we see that when Leia says in Return of the Jedi, there's good inside of him. Or is it Luke that says that? One of them says that in the Ewok village. There's good inside of him. I know it. I can feel it. So here is where we can start to see that hope, because he's looking for his Padawan. I don't believe for a second that he wants to, at this point, wants to murder her. He collects her lightsaber and he looks up. And did you notice? I counted. It was at least 6 seconds. He keeps his gaze upon the owl, or whatever that, what's the creature that symbolizes her?
Convor.
Convor. He keeps his gaze upon that Convor. And even though he has the mechanical face, even though he's more machine than not, I don't for a second believe that he wants to kill that Convor. It's a connection. It's a communication. And that's what gave me hope.
I like that. LJ.
This is why I love Star Wars, because we can look at two different things and have two different interpretations. I saw it as Anakin Skywalker saw his last connection to Anakin Skywalker is dead, because he's assuming she's gone. So he's lost his mentor. Well, Obi-Wan's, who knows where Obi-Wan's at. He already lost his mother. He lost his troopers. He was so close with the 501st. He's lost everything. He lost Padme. He lost his children. And now he finds out he's lost basically his little sister. So I look at it as even more, him diving more into Darth Vader and embracing more of the dark side, because he sees her gone.
I mean, I just say the Padawan lives, in season 2 of Rebels. Well, that's very powerful. Well done, sir. Colby, go ahead.
And I think it's both. I think you see both things, because with the Convor hovering, that's telling us as a audience, Ahsoka is out there. And of course, we know because of Rebels what happens, but it's in that moment you see Vader's loss and his last connection severed, and then you see that Convor up there, and you see that they haven't won. They may be on top of the hill right now, but they haven't won. And I found it really interesting. For me personally, in my experience with Star Wars, whenever I've seen Vader on the screen, I've always seen Vader. I don't necessarily see Anakin. I see Vader. Even though I know, they're the same being. But when I saw Vader kneel down and pick up that lightsaber, I actually, in my heart, I saw Anakin. Maybe it was because it's the Clone Wars. Maybe it's because it's so close to when he was Anakin. But I thought it was, I don't know if they tried to do that on purpose, but I saw Anakin kneeling down and picking up that lightsaber and not Vader. And the last thing about that scene is the final shot of that clone's helmet and the Vader image walking away. But then you see it's broken. It's got that crack right down the middle. And I think that's so symbolic of the brokenness where the story is in that moment. Ahsoka's broken. Vader's broken. Rex is broken. The galaxy is broken. The situation at that moment in that time frame of our Star Wars story is a broken place. And I thought it was so symbolic to have that crack right across that helmet.
Yeah, beautifully said. Wow, awesome. I think we got the right crew for this episode here. Very good. Ross, go ahead.
First of all, I felt so guilty after all of that with Ahsoka and Rex about how excited I was to see snowtroopers and probe droids. I was just, oh my God, this is awesome. And it made me think of Hoth and Empire Strikes Back. And I got this jolt. And then I was like, oh yeah, let's bring this back again real quick. So that was just an amazing piece of it. But the Convor and how much more that means to the Jedi and to the Force as a higher level, and seeing some of the things that have been talked about with it is, hey, is it an incarnation of Qui-Gon or some other component where I think Vader knows something bigger up with that Convor, and I found that very exciting and thrilling. But then just, the beautiful dark of Darth Vader on the white of the snow, and just like there's no sharper contrast of good and evil as when he is Darth Vader. So just how they put it all together, it was gorgeous. And then for even to see whether it was doubt, questioning, self-reflection as he's picking up the lightsaber, as he's seeing the Convor flying above him, it just left so much up to interpretation and can lead to discussions like this, which is why I think we all love it.
Yeah. Oh, that's another home run. Thank you, Ross. There's a lot there. There really is so much to think about. I want to think about how I want to explain this, but the fact that, first of all, when it transitioned into the Imperial shuttle, and we saw the probe droids and snowtroopers and stormtroopers, not clone troopers, I said, yes! I was so excited. Like, everything went away. Because in my heart of hearts, I've always said, I want this to end with Order 66 and going right into Revenge of the Sith. And I never dreamed to let myself hope that Vader would show up in this. But as soon as I saw that shuttle, I had no doubt I was going to see Vader. But my fear was that I was not going to get to see his face. I want to see the Clone Wars model of Vader in his face. So eventually that happens at the end. I put my hands up and I said, yeah! And I don't know what else I said. But Mason goes, Daddy, make sure you don't use bad words. And I said, I'm not going to. I don't even use bad words. I think I said gosh. And I think we've told him, no, say gosh, because it sounds too much like you're saying the Lord's name in vain, that kind of stuff. So I think that's where we're going with that. But then he's walking, again, like you mentioned, Ross, the contrast, very much like when we first see Vader in A New Hope. He walks down, the hallway of the blockade runner, and it's all white. The stormtrooper's all white, except for a little bit of black here and there. And then Vader walks in this beautiful thing. It's got to be so hard to light that in animation too, I would think. And then he walks up quietly, mechanical breathing, and then he gets that lightsaber and he turns it on. I feel like there's so much symbolism in him holding this blue lightsaber. For one thing, he had a blue lightsaber all of his Jedi life. And this one is Ahsoka's, which he knows that. And this is a lightsaber that he messed with. He altered the kyber crystal's consistency to make it go from green to blue, right? And, and I'm sure you've all heard Dave Filoni talk about this, but on the one hand, it shows that Anakin is good at kind of changing the order of things and calling audibles and changing things and trying to help, putting his spin on trying to help. But it's also very controlling, too. The Jedi, a kyber crystal helps to focus a Jedi. It actually allows him to kind of be calm and at peace during battle. And the fact that it's changed to blue because of him, I think is important, because Vader, to me, in this phase of his life, is very, very infantile stage of being Vader, is dark and sad, feeling sorry for himself. Not the angry phase just yet, but the feeling sad and sorry for himself phase. And in that moment, there's like I think was it Tom or LJ, I can't remember, said this is like his last bout of saying goodbye to who he is, because maybe Ahsoka's probably dead. When I saw that, I didn't think, he thinks Ahsoka's dead. I think he thought Ahsoka's not here. And here's her lightsaber. So she's off my radar for now. Whether he knows she's alive or dead, I think he's just, I don't know that he necessarily gives it a ton of thought. When he sees that Convor, to me, I don't think he has any clue what that Convor is. That's for us. That's for us as an audience. And I don't think anyone can accurately say, except for Dave Filoni, what the Convor actually stands for. But we know in A World Between Worlds and Star Wars Rebels and Ahsoka Returns, the Convor is there. We know the Convor is there, in the Great Mortis arc as well. So I think there's a lot of power in that, and it's showing us Ahsoka's still around, but she's not, he's like, it's almost like her spirit animal, or like I don't know. Be worth exploring. Maybe there'll be a book written about it sometime. Who knows? And then at the end, as Vader is walking away, the reflection that you mentioned, Colby, the reflection in the helmet, it's cracked, which is very astute of you to notice. But to me, I also noticed the fact that it's Ahsoka as a clone staring back at him through one eye. I don't think the reflection is in both. I could be wrong, but it almost makes more sense it would be just in one, because Vader's only got one eye on what he should be focusing on. The rest, he's so distracted and so inside himself, hating himself for what he thinks he did was murder his wife. I mean, I could spend another month just talking about that sequence in general.
Yeah, so. And it's gorgeous, and I actually have it up on the screen here. So he is directly in the middle, almost at that V of the nose, and his reflections coming through there. But Dan, that's fantastic, and it's just beautiful storytelling, beautiful visuals, and I think Colby, LJ, Tom, everyone has nailed it. We've been lucky to watch this season.
We have. I'm so grateful, and I feel so blessed that we've got the proper ending. One of my favorite Star Wars moments ever was being in the room at Comic-Con when they announced it was coming back. And I was sitting next to Mediocre Jedi, and the way we were so excited and Riley Bland, and we were just freaking out. And I just thought, great things are going to happen, and getting to see everybody's reactions. And we got a perfect ending. And I don't know how any of you feel, by chance, to anything you want to say about this episode before we sign off. But I hope we don't get any more Clone Wars. I think this is the ending. I don't need Toy Story 4. Toy Story 3 was good. That was the way to end it. Right, Tom? No, is that too soon? But I think it was a beautiful ending. So we'll just go back in order. Ross, Colby, LJ, Tom. Any last things you want to say before we wrap this up? Ross, go ahead.
I think the biggest thing I want to do is just say thank you to Dave Filoni, all the voice actors that, poured their heart and soul into this, and we can recite all the names, but that can go forever and ever. But everyone who's worked on it, you have added to canon, you have added to the DNA, you have brought George Lucas to life and cemented his legacy that much more through how beautiful this was done. So that I would just leave it at that high level, and thank you all.
I think it's a very worthy ending to a very worthy addition to Star Wars myth. If you would have told me in 2008 that we'd be sitting here talking about this show like this, I wouldn't have believed it at all, because the way it started out is definitely not the way it ended. And not to say that it was bad when it started out, but it certainly evolved and grew. And I'm just so appreciative as well to everyone involved in bringing it to us and what it's done to this wonderful mythology that we love so much, because it's added a depth that I don't think it could ever have reached without this show.
Hear, hear. LJ.
This season's been some of the best Star Wars storytelling ever, in my opinion, and some of it might be the best. It was just incredible, mind-blowing. Just thank you to Dave Filoni, and to your point, Dan, I really think I don't want a season 8 at this point. I want it to end on this high note. I want Dave to not be beholden to come back and do more seasons. I want him to move on to other projects. I know he wants to do live action, but they always say leave on a high note, and I think if they get a season 8, you're looking at a Toy Story 4 situation. Not necessarily bad, just not necessarily at the heights of Toy Story 3. And again, Mr. Gross would agree with us on that.
Yes. I love it.
Indeed, I would. Yeah, this is becoming the new Millennium Falcon discussion. I see.
Because this one actually has weight. The other one doesn't have it.
This is your way of trying to get away from that. I see. All right. Well, we'll try to get that solved soon. But I think what I would say is I'm probably last to the party on this one. But I never would have guessed 6-7 years ago when I first started watching Clone Wars and made my way through, and here now we have concluded it, that I never would have guessed that the story of the Clone Wars is going to be a story of Ahsoka Tano. That just, I don't know when that happened, but it sort of gradually happened, at least for me, it gradually happened. And before I knew it, this is a story that I wasn't expecting to come about. But at the same time, what season 7 did for me was show me that war has cost, and war brings the best out of people, and war brings the worst out of people. And when we walk away from the Clone Wars and we shut that book, which we are going to do and we have done, we have our heroes and we have our villains, and we can be happy for that. And I would say that what the season 7 did for me for the Star Wars story is what Rogue One did for me for A New Hope. It took something that was great and was kind of like the foot that kicks the football. Wow, I had this great story of Star Wars, of Revenge of the Sith, but now the Clone Wars season 7 has been what has launched that into greatness. Rogue One did the same thing for New Hope. So it's been a great ride.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is
As we begin to wrap up the show, I want to thank each of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to have a cup of coffee with me and for helping to spread the word about our Star Wars family we've got here at Coffee with Kenobi. Be sure to tune in Monday nights at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live at www.coffeewithkenobi.com/live or www.facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi and have a cup of coffee, tea, or any beverage of your choosing with me as we continue the conversation. To join us in the CWK Cafe, which is our Facebook group, and share your Star Wars thoughts, comments, reviews, and opinions in a family-free, spoiler-free place that is also drama-free, go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/community and be a part of the conversation, talk about this week's show, or just talk some Star Wars. It is a lot of fun, and you'll make some new friends as well as catch up with longtime friends as well. I also want to thank all of my new and longtime friends who joined me in the CWK Cantina and let you know how much I appreciate your help and encouragement and love being able to give back to you with CWK Pour-Over, the exclusive weekly podcast not heard anywhere else. I want to thank Dennis Keithley, Jason Hall, Angela Sauce, Chris Kavarka, Aaron Harris, Alexander Moylan, Ross Hollebon, Jeff Ellis, David Nicely, Jessica Berry, Colby Mead, Frank Mulder, LJ Sowder, Dustin Mills, Robert Avila, Mark Sowder, Nick Deco, Eric Struthers, Jared Cantor, Brian McKinney, Daz Davies, Thea Selby, Chris Metz, Caroline Maselli, Jim Capron, Blake Weaver, Dan Ream, Kurt McKellen, Christine, Simbad Teftradarian, Ian Thompson, Alex Procasio, Hannah, Tyler Pompa, Connie Shee, Susan Gray, Chelsea Sansbury, Josh Boylan, Yancey Evans, Sagacious Crumb, and Greg McLaughlin. If you want an additional way to help out the show, go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/support and join us in the Coffee with Kenobi Cantina. It's a great way to support and help out the show, and 10% of your monthly contributions go directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital to support the incredibly important work they are doing to help these brave children and their families. Plus, contributors at the CWK All-Star level can watch a video podcast of CWK Pour-Over hosted by me, Tom Gross, and Corey Clubb. In addition to being part of the community on Facebook, please don't forget to visit our website at www.coffeewithkenobi.com for Star Wars news, announcements, reviews, live video, and so much more. If you have a question for me or just want to share your thoughts on the air, feel free to email me at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com and I'll share them on the show. You can also connect with me on Twitter at Mr. Zehr, MRZEHR. There are also a lot of ways to connect with me and Coffee with Kenobi on social media. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi and check us out on Pinterest. You can find me twice a month on the podcast Looking at Lucasfilm, part of the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network, and you can find my writing on CWK's website, as well as StarWars.com, where I'm an official blogger there, as well as on IGN, where I contribute articles on Star Wars, as well as other pop culture topics. And If you're considering starting a podcast or a blog, let me know how I can help you get started and help you make your creative vision a reality. Be sure to check out danzmedia.com and we can get the process started. I am also available to come to your school, conference, business, or organization to talk about how to tap into your strengths and help you bring out your very best. I want to inspire you to be inspired. Don't be afraid to take that first step into a larger world. Thanks as always to our CWK sponsors, especially MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, our travel partner and your one-stop shop for all things Walt Disney World, Disneyland, the Disney Cruise Lines, or anywhere you want to go on the planet. Please go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel to book your magical vacation and help support Coffee with Kenobi in the process. If you like this show, please tweet out that you're listening, share it on Facebook, or invite your friends and family to tune in and share a cup of coffee with us. And if the force is especially with you, please take a couple of minutes to rate and review the show on iTunes or Google Podcasts. Every review makes a huge difference and helps to spread the word. Go to iTunes and search Coffee with Kenobi and you'll see the show there. My circle of friends has grown so much because of each and every one of you, and it means so much to me that we have such a wonderful Star Wars community.
It has, and it's been a great ride and an honor to share the microphone with you incredible folks here. It's been so much fun. Thank you all so much for being on Coffee with Kenobi, talking about the very last episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars. Ross, let everybody know if they want to continue the conversation where they can reach out to you and talk with you and also see your great writing.
You can look for me on Twitter at Ross Hollebon. On Instagram, where you'll see a lot of Star Wars pops and other collectibles on at Popstar Indie. And I'm starting to contribute a little bit to Fantha Tracks. So very excited and thankful to Mark Newbold for letting me contribute a little bit over there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Ross. And Colby, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, crosscheck3. Hanging out in the CWK Cafe as well. I like to hang out there and great conversation going on over there.
Oh, and we appreciate it so much. LJ, what about you, bud?
You can pretty much get a hold of me on Twitter at LJ Sowder. That's where I'm at mostly. I usually only hang out on Facebook in the CWK Cafe and hang out on those Monday live shows. Sometimes on Instagram, also at LJ Sowder. But yeah, come talk to me about Star Wars or pretty much anything else.
I love it. And you can also find LJ and I's podcast about Jeff Goldblum coming very soon, too. we DM all the time when those would come out because that was so much fun. Oh, yeah. And I will say, LJ, Ross, Colby, and of course, Tom, when I'm doing the live shows, I love it. It's so fun. But when you three show up, and there's some folks that are just always there, it just makes me feel so happy. And one of the reasons we started this was to help to foster and promote even more of the joy of this community. And the three of you really are excellent examples for me. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you all for doing it.
Of course. Tom, what about you, little buddy?
Of course. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Draftline, DRAFTLINE, or send me an email, Tom. Okay, now I forgot my email. What is that, Dan?
Tom G at coffeewithkenobi.com.
Hey, thank you for finishing that for me. Hey, I'm also on Coffee with Kenobi Weekly and CWK Pour-Over.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.